Brought to you by PrayLatin.com, makers of prayer cards featuring complete English phonetic renderings of Latin pronunciations.
There's a conference going on in Brazil at this moment. It's a United Nations conference on a problem involving temperatures and carbon. And as you might expect, the Brazilian Bishops' Conference are all in. They believe that the church should go all in on this issue. The church has practically gone all in already, but I suppose the biggest proponents of this could find ways for us to do more. Perhaps finally formalize those eco-sins that Pope Francis talked about. But they believe the church needs to go all in, to the point where they actually believe that this is an issue of the gospel. And if you remember, the gospel was about knowing and believing the fact that our Lord was born of a Virgin Mary, became man. He walked the earth. He engaged in ministry on this earth. He suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified, died, and was buried, and rose again on the third day, and he ascended to heaven. You know the rest. He bore a message of, reconciliation with heaven. He opened the gates of heaven if we would simply cooperate with his grace, do the basic things he told us to do, and we would get to enjoy eternity with him. And somehow all of that is part of the green religion. I don't know what it is they're thinking, how they came to this place, but they do believe that they have a mission from God to promote all things green. We go here to Info Vaticana. The headline, Brazil, the Holy See promotes an ecological conversion within the framework of the COP30 conference. That is Bishop Giambattista Di Quattro, Apostolic Nuncio to Brazil, the Vatican's essentially ambassador to the church and the government of Brazil. You saw the words ecological conversion. We've heard that term before. Pope Leo has used it, and Pope Francis has used it as well. It is a term that means we must have an interior religious conversion to include all things green in our understanding of the faith. We must leave behind old practices. Look, first and foremost, the church is, in the modern times, not just post-Vatican II, but going back all the way to the start of the Industrial Revolution and before, condemned materialism. It has. Basing all of the good of this life on buying stuff and having superficial experiences in this life, instead of at least giving God some due time. The church has condemned it. It's a form of idolatry. But this takes it to a whole nother level. So get ready to sing a new earth into being with the Brazilian bishops as we go to this article. Quote, the Apostolic Nuncio to Brazil, Archbishop Giambattista Di Quattro, arrived this week in Belém as deputy head of the Holy See delegation, participating in the UN Conference of the Parties on the Thermometer Problem. The summit, being held from November 10th to the 21st, brings together more than 50 heads of state and government to discuss the future of this problem's policies. According to a local Catholic news outlet, Di Quattro emphasized that one of the Holy See's main objectives this year is to promote education for integral ecology, considered by the Vatican, quote, a crucial field for addressing this crisis. Speaking to Vatican Radio, the diplomat explained that, quote, many countries are including the educational dimension in their nationally determined contributions up to 2035, which in his view demonstrates the growing importance of this educational approach. The official Holy See delegation to the conference consists of 10 members and is headed by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, of course, Secretary of State, who will represent Pope Leo XIV as the highest authority of the Church at the conference. More than 100 representatives of Catholic institutions are also in Belém to participate in activities related to the meeting. He emphasized that in addition to environmental education, the Holy See will promote other key issues at the summit. The reform of the global financial architecture and its connection with the crisis finance, as well as the so-called just transition, which he explained, quote, must include not only economic criteria, but also social and environmental ones. This is the end of decade program, Agenda 2030. This is transitioning to a new economic structure that will be green, but if you scratch it, it will be deep Marx red. The nuncio also mentioned an action plan based on gender, which will offer the opportunity to, quote, reaffirm the disproportionate burden that this problem places on women and promote their active participation in the implementation of the Paris Agreement, end quote. I'm surprised that that they didn't invoke the now debunked concept of the wage gap, because they practically hit everything else that the secular left in North America loves to hit so much. You'll hear some of these prelates talk about undue influence of North America, meaning the United States, but then they like to take the worst elements in our country's ideas and implement them in the church and try to foist them upon largely working peoples and poor peoples in other countries. Brazil may have a modern economic system, but it's not a very free country. It looks like one, but it is not, as any Brazilian who pays attention and is not a progressive will tell you. So why are we forcing these ideas on countries that probably don't want them? In Brazil and other South and Central American countries, the Catholic Church is in free fall. Catholics are leaving the faith, becoming atheists, or joining like evangelical or Pentecostal denominations. And the Catholic bishops don't do much. They've all been captured by liberation theology, or if they haven't been captured by it, play kissy face with it to try to, not quite cross the line, but still embrace most of their bad ideas. And they wonder why people are leaving the faith there. I can tell you why they're leaving the faith. It's not that hard. They are leaving the Catholic faith because they don't hear the gospel anymore. They know this stuff being preached from the ambo is not the gospel. They may hear the gospel proclaimed, but then right after the gospel, when the priest starts speaking, it doesn't match what you just heard from the gospel being proclaimed. And there's the problem there. And so they believe they're not being fed. Even if they're receiving valid sacraments, they still think they're not being fed. So they leave. Leaving the Catholic faith because of bad priests and bad bishops is the worst possible thing you could do. You are receiving the Eucharist. You have access to valid confessions and valid baptisms and valid marriages and the rest. That should be enough for you to stay. You, after all, can read or do other things to learn the faith on your own. And maybe while that priest is giving a bad homily, you can roll your eyes quietly and pray for him. Maybe not so much the rolling of the eyes. That's generally a rude thing to do at Mass. But generally pray for him if he starts spouting off about stuff that would have sounded perfect coming out of the mouth of Justin Trudeau or something like that. I'm curious what you think of this, though, so let me know in the comments. Are you surprised that the Vatican is going all in on this? It's an 11-day conference, and they're going to be there the whole time. They brought in pretty much every secular idea that they could get away with bringing in. Does that surprise you? Do you think, wow, here we are, 6 months now of Pope Leo, and I guess nothing's changed? Let me know what you think of this in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. Sharing this on social media helps too. Please pray for everybody we spoke about today, especially those we spoke about negatively. And as always, well, again, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.